Hi guys, and welcome back to Almost a Cinephile. I am Becca. This is my channel Almost a Cinephile, where I am learning to I don't even know. What am I learning? Nothing, apparently. I don't even know how to speak. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel Almost a Cinephile. My name is Becca. I am Almost a Cinephile, where this channel is all about opening and broadening up my cinema experiences. I need to watch more movies basically because I feel like I love a good blockbuster. I love a good creepier A24 film, but I really want to delve more deeply into cinematography and learning more about films in general. So if you like that kind of thing, give this video a thumbs up, and you can subscribe below if you fancy that. Hang out with me and we can talk about movies old and new. I have children. I cannot get to the cinema very easily, so I will not always be talking about new releases. It's very much a I have finally watched something channel, and we can discuss. Also loads of lists like today. Today is my top 10 autumn feeling films, and these are the films that give me proper autumny vibes. There is one that leans more towards Halloweeny vibes, but most of them are very much just autumn feels. So if that sounds like something you want to watch and listen to, then carry on. So I don't own copies of every single film I'm going to be talking about, but I have actually watched all of the films that I have on this list. But the copy I do have is for the first film, which is Coraline. And Coraline is one of the most spookiest and biggest surprises that I've ever watched. I went into this completely blind. I know this is a book that was written by Neil Gaiman, but I'd never heard of Studio Laika or the films they'd done previously, including Paranorman, and I think The Box Trolls came before this one. But when I watched this, I absolutely fell in love with the style. The stop motion animation in this is incredible, and the story is really interesting and super creepy. It's definitely a PG, but towards that end of that third act, it got really scary. She's screaming down the spider web. Even I was like, oh my god, I don't think this is for children at all, but apparently it is. And this is Coraline, and she is the main character in the film. If you've never seen it before, it's basically a film about feeling like your life is kind of crappy and wanting more from it, and when you get that, it's not always as it seems. And there's some seriously creepy characters in this, all with buttons in their eyes. If you have seen this, let me know what your thoughts down below, but I absolutely love watching this with the kids, especially around this time of year. So a film that everybody tends to crap very heavily on, that is one of my favourite autumny feeling films purely because of atmosphere. There's vampires, there's a love story. You know that I am going to be saying that this is one of my favourites. Twilight is a brilliant film, and it's a great, I love this franchise. Yeah, there's some issues. I agree with the imprinting on a baby thing. Not really the vibe, but the first Twilight, if you haven't seen the franchise or you haven't seen Twilight at all, is just really, really good. I believe the budget for this film was a lot lower than the other 4 films that came after it, basically. This was much more of a low budget film, and it does show, but I think that's what makes it better than the other ones. The soundtrack to the Twilight franchise, specifically Twilight, the first film, is really good. I still listen to most of those songs, even now, on my Spotify. If you love vampires and romance and you haven't seen this, like, where have you been? This is like one of the most heaviest memed films ever. It set the bar for memes, okay? This is a Skin of a Killer, Bella. I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. Me and my sisters always are saying lines from this film because it just has an endless list of them. Twilight is creepy and spooky and misty, and there's the atmosphere, and they live in like a really dark, rainy part of Washington in Forks. My place of where I live right now feels very much like that. We're very much near a forest, and it gets very misty and the weather changes very quickly. I love thinking that I live in Forks. I pretend I live in Forks. And how can you not like this? I know there's going to be so many of you screaming through the screen saying this is absolute trash, but it's not. I stand by Twilight, and I always will. This defined an era, okay? This really did set the bar for that paranormal romance phase of the 2000s, and I am here for it still, forever. So another film that I don't own but I absolutely love and gives me all the autumn feels that I only just recently rewatched again is number 3 on the list, which is Princess Mononoke, which is a Studio Ghibli film. One of the more gory, I wouldn't say it goes as far as adult films, but it definitely has some very heavy adult themes. There's a lot of kind of heavy morale in this film, so it's very much a divide between humans and nature and how they are not working well together, and the impacts of that. Very environmental themes running throughout the film, but it does have that wonderful foresty atmosphere similar to Twilight, where you've got that really deep, thick forest. There's magic, there's gods, there's talking animals, there's tribes. It's very old Japan. The main character, Ashitaka, basically is he's exiled from his tribe. They have to treat him like he's dead because he was touched by a demon that came out of a boar. Now, I know this sounds a bit mad if you haven't seen it, but knowing Studio Ghibli films and the very magical, deep lore that they have in most of their films, I'm hoping you're sticking with me here. So he is banished and his destiny takes him to the forest where the gods are to try and save both the human side and the animal side of this conflict so that they can live in harmony, and it doesn't particularly go very well. As I said, there are some very graphic and gory scenes in this. There are only a couple. My kids still do watch this film, but just to kind of make you aware, if you're thinking of letting your kids watch this, just prepare yourself. There is a little bit of body horror in it. My favourite for a reason. It's one of the first Studio Ghibli films I ever saw, ever. It really defined a moment in time for me specifically as well, so it means a lot to me. So speaking of magical, spooky vibes, I don't think this list would be anywhere without the Harry Potter franchise. I am yet to collect any of these films. They have just been kind of on Netflix recently for the last, I want to say, year. Before that, they were on a lot of streaming channels like ITV Plus sometimes, or whatever that's called now. But now they are officially on Netflix, and I think they're going to be staying on there. I am yet to collect, but I really do want to get all the Harry Potter films as well. I love Harry Potter. There's some choices right at the end of the last film, specifically when they look older with children, that I felt like didn't need to happen. That's the one thing about the whole franchise I hated, like, with a passion. But the rest of the franchise is amazing. Obviously, I think the first 2 films are very light and much more child friendly. I much prefer where it starts to get a lot darker. I think personally the Goblet of Fire has always been my favourite. I know a lot of people prefer either The Prisoner of Azkaban or The Half-Blood Prince, tends to be most people's vibe. I really like The Goblet of Fire. I love A Trial. That's my favourite, and I don't think you can go throughout like the whole of autumn or Christmas without watching Harry Potter. Like, it's you know, magic, it's witches, it's wizards. It defined a massive point of history. Those books, I remember people were actually queuing up to buy them, and I've actually never read them, but I really do enjoy the films, especially now I can pass them down to my children and they can watch them with me. And they also have had their own Potter loving stage in their life. They're now slowly growing out of Harry Potter, but then my youngest is now going back into it. They're great films, you can't say they're not, but as I said, there are the very kind of childish ones at the beginning, and then you get darker and darker, and I really love seeing that tonal shift throughout the 8 films that they're made. Moving away from spooky vibes and going into just pure autumn mood is When Harry Met Sally. I really like this film. It was one of my dad's favourite, and it was the film where Meg Ryan really had her Renaissance era, shall I say. So it was You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, it was this one, When Harry Met Sally, and they all came out within kind of the last 5 years of one another. And I just love this film so much. It's very reminiscent if you've seen One Day with Anne Hathaway or Love Rosie with Lily Collins, where it's 2 characters that are friends and they continuously, spontaneously meet up with each other over a long period of time. I think in Harry Met Sally it's around 12 years. And they meet up and you can tell they as an audience that they really are meant to be together, but they remain friends, and they have relationships outside of their friendship with their own kind of lovers, boyfriends, girlfriends, and they talk about them with each other and go through things like relationships and life and all that kind of thing. And it does get to the point where you're like screaming because you know they should be together, no matter what. And it doesn't give you the satisfaction until right at the end, where, I mean, spoiler alert, they eventually do get together, but it follows them over so many different points in time. And a lot of them are around the holidays, and in autumn and Thanksgiving if you're American, and New Year's, and it just gives me all the late autumny vibes. Even the cover of the freaking DVD is autumn in a nutshell, basically. Another film that I actually do own that feels particularly autumnal and very dark academia, which I feel like is a very autumny subject or subgenre, is Mona Lisa's Smile, which is a film about a college campus for girls, and a teacher, or a professor I think they would be, which is Julia Roberts' character, goes in, she teaches art, and she is the definition of the housewife, like the person that doesn't, you know, necessarily want to get married and doesn't want children. She focuses more on her career and on art and on this more bohemian lifestyle. And in the 50s, which I think is when this was set, girls are more so groomed to and conditioned, I would say, to be more housewives and look after their men and cook and clean and have babies, and that's their life. They are conditioned to eventually leave this college, and whilst they've learnt loads, they're very successful in the things that they love to do, and they're smart, intelligent women, they still ultimately want to do what they should do, which is get married young and have the kids and have that kind of white picket fence sort of lifestyle. And Julia Roberts is trying her hardest to break that mold and get through to some of these people and push them to want to do more with themselves. Kirsten Dunst is really, really good in this. She's evil, but she comes around. She has a really good character moment. The girl that was in 10 Things I Hate About You is in this, and Maggie Gyllenhaal, I forget she's in this, but it is really, really good. I would implore you to give it a watch, especially if you like that dark academia vibe. College, campus, starting in September, obviously most people do around the world start school at that time of year, so it's a really, really good one for that. So now we're going into more of the horror picks, and number 7 is the most Halloweeniest film of these films that I'm going to talk about, and that is John Carpenter's Halloween. So Halloween is about a killer called Michael Myers. I think you all know who this guy is with the mask, who in the 50s kills his sister and is then put in a mental institution, and then he breaks free and terrorizes the town of Haddonfield, where a very young Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays Laurie Strode, is living there and babysitting, and he starts to terrorize and slowly kill her friendship group, and then he starts to come after her. It's really creepy, and the music score in this is classic. You can't like beat a good Halloween score. Whilst Halloween isn't my absolute favourite horror film I've seen ever, it's definitely not my favourite classic horror film either. I do appreciate what it does and why people love it so much, and it does really give those autumny vibes. I think there's a huge following out there for these franchises of films. There's so many, and I really do not understand the timeline. I've only watched Halloween 1 and 2. I haven't seen the new 2018 Halloween. I've not seen the weird ones that go off into a direction like H2O or any of those ones where it's like a cult and he's part of like a witches group. I think I've heard a few of those as well. I've literally watched number 1 and number 2, both with Jamie Lee Curtis in it when she was younger. The first one where she has to fight him off in the house, and the second one I think she's in the hospital. Both are really, really great films, and again they are Halloween, they are October autumny films. There's nothing you can get that's as close as this franchise would be. I like them. They're really fun. I really enjoyed watching the first one, and as I said, the score and the characters like Dr. Loomis are all really captivating and really good, and it's just a really fun slasher film. So number 8 is another really fun and scary horror film, which is Jennifer's Body. Much more satirical and funny than it is horror or scary, but it is really good. It stars Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried, and they play friends. One is particularly a bit more geeky and kind of weird than the other, where Megan Fox plays much more of a popular kind of character, very stigmatized popular character, you know, the girls that wear all the makeup and the mini skirts and kind of that kind of popular high school girl. And basically they go to a concert and something happens, basically it sets on fire, and Megan Fox's character Jennifer basically goes home with the band, only to find out they're a bit more of they're not kind of what she thought they were. They're like a satanic devil worshipping cult who kill her because essentially she's a virgin, but where they think they killed her, they didn't. She basically comes back to life, and starts picking off men one by one as she develops a taste for them, and essentially it's about Jennifer and Amanda Seyfried's character fighting each other by the end of it to try and help her, but they can't help her because of what's happened. And it's a very funny roller coaster of a ride. I really love it. It's very like Mean Girls but horror. I don't think it got like the best reception when it first came out. I've always loved this film. It's always been really fun. I used to own a copy of it. I don't now. I really would like to get another copy and get it back in my collection, but it is a super fun spooky creepy film. Yeah, I love it. It's brilliant. So number 9 is Robert Eggers' The VVitch. This film came out in 2016. It's about a family in New England, kind of around the 17th century, that are banished from their town, and they have to set up their home somewhere else. They end up in a field next to a forest, and they try to grow crops, and they don't grow, and things aren't working out the way they wanted them to. They are very much religious and God-believing people. And those days, I think kind of witches were around. They were known, and lots of girls obviously were being murdered and killed for being told that they are witches when they weren't. So you're following this family. Anya Taylor-Joy is the older sister. I think she has twin sisters, and then she has a brother and a baby brother or sister. And when the baby gets taken, all hell kind of breaks loose, and the family slowly unravel. Things just keep getting worse for the family. It's like where they lived, and everything that happened since they got banished, their luck has just been terrible, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And there's something in the forest, and you don't really know what it is. You see glimpses of things as you go through the film, but you're not really sure what it is. This film is incredibly tonal. It's very bleak. It's almost like black and white, but it's not. It's that very blue grey tones. It's just this poor family literally go through horrible things, and there's a goat and there's a naked lady in the forest. It's really interesting. It's not my favorite Robert Eggers film, but I really did enjoy the way it was made. It was beautifully made. And number 10 is another film that has a lot of atmosphere and bleakness to it. It also has that very tonal shift through the cinematography of the actual film. It's very dark. It has that very bluey grey kind of look to it, and that is The Ring. The Ring and me have a interesting relationship. I feel like I would absolutely recommend this to anybody that has not seen it before, or if you haven't kind of grown up with the references from this film that have been in other forms of media. This film is very heavily referenced in so many more pieces of media that you almost kind of know what it's about without having to watch it, and that was my experience. So I already knew more about it than I wish I did. So when I watched it, it didn't have the impact I think it had on others that watched it for the very first time. I have since watched the original Japanese Ringu. I liked that better. I still didn't find it that scary. The bit at the end where her eye kind of goes creepy is a little bit creepy, but I was hoping it would be way more scary than it was. But The Ring is very good. It is a very, very good and much more expansive story than the original Ringu. But the kid in this, I don't like the kid, all right? I don't like the kid in this. And number 2, The Ring 2, which I also own and I have also watched, is also like heavily involving that kid. This kid is creepy. He calls his mum Rachel. He zips her dress up. He lays her clothes out on the bed. And I just don't get that relationship. It creeps me out. Maybe that's a good thing. It's supposed to be creepy. It's The Ring. But if you've not seen The Ring, basically it's about a videotape that if you watch it and you then get a phone call and you're told that you're going to die in 7 days, and basically it's about Naomi Watts' character trying to break the curse of dying in 7 days after she picks up this videotape. She's a reporter, I think, and she tries to help either her niece or somebody that she's related to. She tries to track down the tape and find out what's happened, and then obviously gets too involved in it and has to save both herself and her child from the ultimate ending of The Ring. It's interesting. It's a really, really interesting film, and I really implore you to watch this without knowing much about it or anything about it if you can. It was kind of spoiled for me, and as I said, the kid kept taking me out of this damn film. He's just so weird. But if you love that really creepy, slow burn, bleak tonal film, then I would definitely check The Ring out if you haven't seen it. So I really hope you enjoyed my top 10 autumnal movies. Please let me know down below any of your favourite picks. There may be so many more that I'm not aware of. I know a lot of my list is very... it's very like those surface level movies, no kind of hidden gems in there. I mean, maybe there will be, maybe there'll be things that you haven't heard of before, but as I said, my catalogue of films that I've actually seen versus what I would like to see is very small, and we're building on it slowly with this channel. So yeah, I really hope you loved watching this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.